Hi, Paul Higgins here. What we want to talk about in this tutorial is the SasPlanet options. The options that Sat2Chart has for SasPlanet. So I'm going to show you how Sat2Chart creates a chart from SasPlanet, and I'm going to show you the SasPlanet options. Now, I'm not going to show you them all. Some of them will have their own tutorials. I'm just going to refer to that tutorial. Now I want to show you how Sat2Chart creates a chart from SasPlanet. There is first the download phase. So here we have SasPlanet, we have Sat2Chart. SasPlanet has a place where it stores all its tiles. It's called a cache. And there are servers out there. These don't belong to SasPlanet. They belong to companies like Google and Navionics and Bing. But SasPlanet has the capability of accessing those servers for a certain map. So what happens is somebody issues a create chart. Sat2Chart will issue a download map request to SasPlanet, and SasPlanet will create a little task to download the map from the server. So it goes to the server, gets the data, and puts it in the cache. Now the same thing might happen if we happen to have a layer specified. Sat2Chart will send a request to SasPlanet to get the layer data, and then a task will be created in SasPlanet, and it will access the server where the layer data is, and then put it in the cache. Okay, after the download phase, there's an export phase. And in this phase, Sat2Chart will send an export request to SasPlanet, who will create a little task, and that task will access the data needed to create the map, to create the chart from the cache, and then it will actually create the MB tiles if it happens to be an MB tiles. If it's a capped, what will happen is Sat2Chart itself will create a little task that will access the cache, get the data, and then create the cap. So that's the whole process of creating a chart from SasPlanet. Now let's look at the Sat2Chart SasPlanet options. So here's Sat2Chart, and it has a bunch of options up here, one of them being SasPlanet. And if you open that, these are all the things that are specified in there and the options. The first one is the SasPlanet location. That is where SasPlanet is installed. In other words, the directory it's in. Make sure that's correct. The next thing is invoke SasPlanet download. Now, if that is not checked, I'll show you what happens, and I'll show you what happens when it's checked. So go back to here. If the invoke SasPlanet download is checked, we get a create check request. It goes through the normal process of creating and exporting everything. Okay? If it's not checked, and we get a create chart, what will happen is we will skip the download phase because we know all the data is already in the cache. And then Sat2Chart sends an export request to SasPlanet. It creates a task, gets the data, and puts it in the cache, or creates the MB tiles rather. And the same thing would happen for a cap, as I showed you before. Okay, the next option we want to look at is this here split downloads checkbox. What this does, if this is checked, it's going to split it's going to tell SasPlanet to split the workload into multiple tasks. And after it has a value, this is the initial value for all the maps. But if you've done a multi-map support, this field will disappear and they'll be all put in separate fields in the map selection. So right now it's showing, so I'm going to show you what happens if you specify splits 2. Okay, what happens is, here's SasPlanet, Sat2Chart, cache, servers. We get a create chart request, and Sat2Chart will send a request to SasPlanet to download the map, and it will also tell it how many splits it wants. And if there happen to be 2 of them, what's going to happen is SasPlanet is going to create multiple tasks to do the download and put the data in the cache. So if we had splits 2, it would create 2 tasks to actually do the download and put it in the cache. And this would also apply if you were doing a layer. It would also split the layer into multiple tasks to do it. Now how SasPlanet splits it, if you had 2, it probably splits the workload in 2. In other words, half the tiles would be downloaded by one task and half by the other, and I guess depending on the split value, it would split it accordingly. Okay, let's look at some of the other options. Overwrite old tiles. So normally, if the tiles are already in the cache, it won't overwrite them. But if you check that, it will, and you can qualify that. You can say overwrite old tiles only if they're different, or only created before a certain date, and you can use both of those together. Okay, the next one is select multiple zoom levels for a single chart. So if we go back to select multiple zoom levels for if that is unchecked, here's what happens. You'll simply get a screenshot. Sat2Chart will take a screenshot of the SasPlanet window and create the MB tiles, or if it happens to be a cap, it will create it too. If it's select multiple zoom levels is checked, it will just go through the normal process of downloading and exporting, just like it normally does. Look at the other options here. Reuse selected zoom levels and maps. So if you happen to have selected zoom levels and maps, either using the multi-map support or the select multiple zoom levels for a MB tiles chart, and you don't want to specify that again, you would simply check that. Next one is multi-map support, and there is a tutorial on that. That allows you to, in one creation of one instance of Sat2Chart, it can download multiple maps and create charts from each of them. And there's a tutorial on that, so I'm not going to go into that. This one is adding XYZ depths, and there is also a tutorial on that. Okay, let's look at the rest of the options. We have bypass confirming chart selection. Normally you would check that. I'll show you what happens if you didn't check it. Go back to our main panel here, and suppose we're creating charts from HLGs, and we select 2 of them here. We press finish. If that option is not checked, it will bring up this window, and it'll show you the chart name. It'll allow you to put in the chart name. It'll show you the HLGs you've selected, and you can add more, or you can just say OK. Okay, so most of the time you want that bypass confirming chart selection on, because Most people didn't like to have that there pop-up come up there. It's just an extra thing that you had to do. And some people were leaving Sat2Chart unattended and just creating multiple charts, and they didn't want to come back and have to confirm those selections in that pop-up. So make sure this is, or most of the time, have this bypass confirming chart selection checked. The next one is add marine depths to a chart. And this is also in the tutorial, so I'm not going to explain it. But what you can do is take a satellite chart and add depths to it from a marine chart. And as I say, there's a complete tutorial on that. Down here is the maximum number of SAS planets. This comes into effect when you're doing a multi-map support. It will bring up multiple copies of SasPlanet to do the work. And this is the maximum number. You can leave it as 8. And that's it for the options. Okay, I showed you the SasPlanet options, showed you how Sat2Chart creates a chart from SasPlanet. I showed you the SasPlanet's options. Some of them you have to go look at other tutorials, but most of them are explained. So, thank you for watching.